Welcome everyone to webinar number 3 of the OpenAir Carbon Removal Challenge. We'll be focusing on landing a CDR job. We have a full panel today and even an additional guest. But let me first do some introductions about the Carbon Removal Challenge, and then we'll launch into the webinar. So the Carbon Removal Challenge is sponsored by the OpenAir Collective, and it's basically a 9-month program. We started in September. We launched right before Climate Week. We're doing this webinar series. We just launched our mentoring program. So if you're a student and you want to participate in a team in the challenge, you can go ahead and register now, and we can give you access to the mentors. We've got about a dozen mentors at this point, just waiting to help you guys out in advising you on your projects, because we got feedback last year that they wanted more time for the mentoring. So please register so that you can participate in that. And the registration deadline isn't until January, but then in March, everything is due for your applications. And then in April, we announced the finalist teams that get to attend the Carbon Unbound conference. And Carbon Unbound in New York City, you get to present at the final showcase as part of the conference program, and you get to network with everybody there, which is really fun. So key dates for that, just to review, the mentorship program's just begun. Registration closes January 20th. Submissions are due. That's like mostly a 10-page white paper about your proposal, your innovative carbon removal solution, due March 2nd. Who participates? We've had over 300 students participate. This is our 4th year doing the challenge. We actually had double the participation last year compared to the year before. And from 31 countries around the world, we had finalists or winners from the US, Canada, and Switzerland last year. We've had winners from Australia and Japan as well. And some of our winners have already started startups, including 2 of our 2025, or actually 3 of our 2025 teams are starting up. So that's pretty cool. We do need some sponsors to help us handle our expenses for bringing the students to Carbon Unbound. We've had X Prize and 10 Cents Carbon X program as sponsors in the past, and of course Carbon Unbound is our venue sponsor, and we're very grateful to them. And we've also just launched our crowdfunding program, so we have a lot of folks volunteering their time as judges and mentors for the program, and now you can also donate financially to help bring the teams to New York. We have a $6,000 goal, which would cover bringing 1 team to New York City. So Matt, please put that fundraiser link in the chat. If people get value out of our webinars and want to support this program, you can be a judge or a mentor. You can, if you're qualified, and you can contribute to the crowdfunding campaign. So we're doing our 3rd webinar today. We had a great one last month with a bunch of direct air capture companies. We're going to skip December, and in January, towards the end of January, we're going to have a webinar with startups. I tried very hard to get that all lined up before today, but startup founders are very busy people, and so some of them are saying it's too busy, but I did hear back from Octavia Carbon in Kenya, and they're really interested in participating in our webinar in January. So we will have hopefully Octavia Carbon, and I've got a lead on another startup as well. So hopefully we'll get perspective from the startup founders, and then that'll give us some great context for future webinars with accelerators, buyers, and venture capitalists. Okay, so let me stop sharing. And with that intro, I'd like to bring all of our panelists up on camera. And welcome everybody. As I said, we've got a really full panel today. Let me just get my notes up here. Give me a second. Here. All right. So we have Ben Swainbank from Work on Climate. We have Tank Chen from CDR Jobs. Casey Goldstein from College to Climate. We've got the inimitable Max Pisciotta, who's a PhD with lots of CDR experience and wrote a great article about the CDR job search process with lots of great advice. And we also have Stephen McCord here from the University of Michigan's Global CO2 Initiative. So before I dive in, I just have a couple more last minute things. For CDR, we are talking about removing carbon from the atmosphere and storing it durably. We're not talking about carbon capture and storage, which would be usually considered to be capturing fossil CO2. So we're not talking about that. We need to draw down the CO2 in the atmosphere, and we also need to reduce our emissions in order to hit our target goals and have a safe climate. I want to thank our team, Matt Parker, the co-founder of OpenAir, who's going to be handling the Q&A, and we'll have hopefully a lot of time for the Q&A at the end of our panel. So please enter your questions in the Q&A box in the bottom of your screen. And I also want to thank Duncan and Adrian, who are members of our organizing committee. Okay, so that said, let's start off with introductions. Everyone on the panel, please introduce yourself and give your background academically and professionally. Talk a little bit about your organization, how you became interested in carbon removal and supporting job seekers. So with that, let's start with Tank.
All right, thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Matt, for organizing this event. Hi, everyone. My name is Tank Chen. I'm based in Taiwan. I'm a co-founder of CDR.fyi and CDR Jobs. I'm also an ecosystem fellow at Carbon Business Council. Yeah, I came from a background in education. Before coming to the CDR ecosystem, I was a high school teacher for a better part of 7 years. And just towards the end of that, I stumbled upon carbon dioxide removal while I was, researching about carbon credits in general. Prior to that, I had very little experience in anything in carbon, but I was fascinated by the idea that you could finance climate action through this carbon credit market or the carbon market. So from there, I started doing a lot of research. As we say, you fall into the rabbit hole and then just keep digging and digging and digging. And then I started volunteering at first because transitioning from education to more entrepreneurial sort of workspace was quite a difficult jump for me. So I thought volunteering would be a great idea to get engaged. And so I started with OpenAir Collective, and and it's been a great experience and a great journey.
Yeah, and the rest is history. Typically, you're on the other side of the panel and helping with this is CDR webinars. So, great veteran of the Open Air Collective and, becoming a prominent figure in the space with all of your initiatives. So thanks, Tank. How about you, Ben?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, my name is Ben Swainbank. I'm here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, in the United States. And so my background is in technology and working at small startup companies in and around this area. And I kind of had my climate wake-up call maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I read the David Wallace Wells book, The Uninhabitable Earth, and was like, oh, like this is what we need to do. It's what everybody needs to do, but also what I really need to do. And so began to look at, all right, how do I get involved? How do I get in? And really could see kind of the need for a catalytic role around standards development and verification practices. And so I founded the organization, which is now Oceanid Climate and Carbon Solutions. And so we work closely with both verifiers and project developers, focusing on the marine pathways, but then also do some work in enhanced rock weathering and biochar. So kind of working mostly on the verification side, um, and methodology development side across a variety of pathways. And then I think, yeah, kind of coming into this new about 3 years ago now, one of the first things I did was I joined Work on Climate and kind of went to the Learn Ocean channel and was like, hey, who wants to talk about this stuff? How cool, help me learn about this stuff. And so met a lot of people through that. I am part of the Work on Climate's kind of expert office hours program. And so I talked to a lot of people who are interested in getting into climate through that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Casey.
Howdy, folks. I'm Casey Goldstein. I am an investor at a three-letter acronym called MCJ, and then am also one of the co-founders of College to Climate. I'm here in Boston, at an hour south of Bend right now. I graduated from college all of 1 year ago, so I feel still pretty fresh to the workforce. But College to Climate really came out of being in college, scratching my head, trying to figure out where the heck somebody finds a job straight from college into climate. So it was very self-serving in that regard. And we built a community that were monthly meetups at the time of students, meeting somebody who's my age now that has 1 or 2 years of experience just to talk about how they got from point A to point B. From there, we just expanded into a community online that now has folks from 80 or so countries and 400 different universities. So we've been very, very excited about the snowball from there. I am the least knowledgeable when it comes to CDR specifically. The day job that I have is with an early stage climate VC firm. A number of our companies are in the CDR space, so I'm happy to talk about that. But very stoked to just talk broadly about, for the people that want to make the leap right from college, what you can do, how to work smarter, not harder.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Casey. And Max?
Hi everyone, I'm Max Pisciotta. I kind of came, I guess, to CDR more through carbon management generally. My background is in engineering, a lot of different energy systems and looking at how emissions can be tracked and then reduced through there, and then also recognizing that CDR is a very complementary solution to carbon reduction as well. I currently work at Limelight Steel. We're a company that is decarbonizing steel by using lasers instead of coal, so not quite CDR, but definitely carbon reduction. And prior to this, yeah, I guess I had graduated from my PhD and I was on the job search for about 9 months myself. And I think one of the things that really brought me into wanting to help other job seekers is just the amount of support that I got from my friends and my community, and a lot of the lessons I learned that maybe weren't as intuitive. And so wanting to pass those along to other job seekers as well. But yeah,
Cool,
incredible
thank you.
to be here.
And you're semi-famous being a star in the Legion 44 movie, right? Documentary.
Yes, I am part of the Legion 44
Yeah,
documentary as well.
yeah. Okay, and now last but not least, we have Stephen McCord from the University of Michigan. So, Stephen, why don't you introduce yourself and then you can launch right into talking about the University of Michigan Global CO2 Initiative.
Yeah, hi, thank you. It's nice to meet everyone. I'm Stephen McCord. I am, I suppose, a chemical engineer by training, but I spend most of my time now working on systems level analysis. So life cycle assessment, techno-economic assessment for emerging technologies across carbon management. So a lot of work here that we do as part of GCI is in carbon utilization. So CO2 to X, CO2 to minerals, but then we also touch upon, some of the other aspects of CDR, some of those open systems, and also occasionally look at some of those CCS pathways so that we can get a nice level playing field of viewpoints across the whole sector. We are very lucky at GCI to be based within the University of Michigan, which means that we are in constant contact with students. We have a junior organization in the Michigan Carbon Capture Club, and we also have a lot of student researchers. And I think one of the things that sort of when we think about how you can find CDR jobs, what I want to sort of impress upon you guys very quickly, so you can get onto the actually interesting panelists that you have, is that you can start thinking about this from where you are today. I think things like this challenge that the OpenAir Collective have put forward is a really good start to this. But then also have a look around for allies in your school. The Michigan Carbon Capture Club runs itself. They work on developing direct air capture. They're looking at biochar as well at the minute, and the sort of CDR solution. I just really want to really encourage you as students to look around, find people that have similar interests, and realize that you're at a good point in your careers to take a chance. Sort of like Casey mentioned, this is a great place for you to sort of explore your interests. And hey, you might try 3 or 4 different directions before finding the one that really resonates with you. But yeah, please utilize what you have around you in those universities. There are lots of research, there are lots of researchers, and there are lots of other students that you can use to sort of build that pathway. We at GCI engage with students, consistently in both sort of research projects as well as taught things. We take part in something that's called the Tech Lab Climate Change, where we have teams of students work with CDR and utilization companies specifically for a year long. And I would just, as a sort of entrepreneurial exercise, and I would, really encourage people to seek out those opportunities whilst you're still students before you have to worry about, the bills that you have to pay and various other bits. If you have any more questions, or if there's anything I can do to help answer questions about how you might go about that, please let me know.
That's great. And I have to say, we've seen several strong teams, including winning teams from the University of Michigan for the Carbon Removal Challenge. So I hope that we get some great submissions again this year. And I know that the Global CO2 Initiative is currently hiring postdocs, right? I think I saw a post for that I shared on
Yes,
LinkedIn.
that's correct.
And I know of 2 graduates who are out in the world doing CDR. One's at a startup and one is working at RMI. So you have a good job placement record for your graduates as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
We've sent a few people off to Black and Veatch and various other places too to help with the utilization teams. And I think if we can help students here or elsewhere, work on those skills. 'Cause one of the things that we see as an organization is that one of the big bottlenecks that is coming is a shortage of people that not only have passion but have knowledge and are willing to go out there and put that into practice. So we can't scale without having without having the people that are interested in learning. So it's really cool to hear how so many of the different panel members got into this as lateral moves or as hey, this needs to be fixed. People like Ben, so I think it's if we can help encourage that in any sort of way, we're happy to be part of that ecosystem.
great. And we got a question in the chat. Could you provide a link to the postdoc opening if maybe while we're continuing our program, you could do that, Stephen? That would be great. Okay, so thanks, Stephen. And now we'll launch into the discussion here for our panel. Tank, I was hoping that you could give us some context, given your CDRjobs work. CDRjobs published a CDR salary report for 2024 and is conducting a 2025 salary survey now. I was wondering if you could tell us what trends you're seeing in the job market, especially at the entry level, and if you're seeing regional variations, especially given the current climate in the US, if you could talk about that some. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, so maybe a little background about CDR jobs. So CDRjobs.earth, we are a job board platform. At the same time, we um, set up the platform so that we can run analytics on the job market overall in CDR as we look forward to the growth of the CDR market. I think tracking the employment in CDR is also quite important and is helpful in a lot of ways for either policy advocacy or locally for other community advocacy work as well. So last year in 2024, we ran a survey with all the community members that are in CDR ecosystem. We asked them about their roles that they're in and the salary ranges. And this year we did the same exercise, and we will be publishing the results fairly soon in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, to give you a sense of the CDR jobs market. So the jobs market overall in the last 12 months, between October and September of this year, October last year to September of this year, CDRjobs.earth tracked about 2,900 job openings overall from 233 companies and across 27 countries. So that's on average about 8 new jobs every single day. Obviously, we're looking at this, on a global level. In terms of trends, regionals, Europe is the number one when it comes to the number of jobs, of about 46%, and then North America about 42%. So in total, these two, Europe and North America accounts for 88% of all the jobs in CDR. Now, when it comes down to the country level, United States is by far the largest in terms of number of jobs, about 36%. This is from this year. 36% of that 3,000 jobs comes from United States, and then Europe, so you have Germany, Netherlands, the UK, Switzerland. These are all also where a lot of these CDR startups are, and therefore that's where the jobs are. And then when we look at CDR by the different pathways to do carbon dioxide removal, obviously you have pathways like direct air capture, enhanced weathering, biochar, and other bikers or biomass related pathways. Now, what we've seen is that direct air capture tend to have there are more jobs in direct air capture companies than there is in all others. So direct air capture, biomass, these are the top two, and then you also in the carbon market, we also have a lot of intermediaries. So these are ecosystem services, as we call them, that facilitate the trading or the investment of carbon removal activities. So actually, in total, ecosystem services have more. There are more jobs in ecosystem services than in each of the CDR pathways. And then if we focus more on the entry level jobs, so it is quite interesting that in the entry level jobs, look into the stats, they tend to stack up pretty similar to the overall job market. So when we look at the types of roles that are hiring for entry level jobs, engineering roles are the most. It takes about 20% of all entry level jobs will be in disciplines that are engineering. These are mechanical engineering, process engineering, and so on. And then operations and project management come second, and then maintenance and technician. So these are more field jobs, also one of the top threes. And then what's a little bit more different is that when we look at the job market overall, about 50% of the jobs are on-site jobs, and then about another 25% would be online or remote, fully remote, and another 25% would be hybrid. Whereas at the entry level, close to 80% are on-site or hybrid. So is remote jobs are for more senior levels, whereas on-site jobs tend to, well, because you're doing a lot of on-field work. So those jobs are the entry level tend to require on-site. Yeah, and in general, what we're seeing is that direct air capture companies are hiring the most, and then biomass companies are the second, and then the ecosystem, as I said earlier, will be the third. So and then again, I think what's interesting here is that most of the attendees today are based in the United States, as I see in the chat. So US does have you do have an advantage of being in the US for entry level jobs, because most of them do require you to be on site, whereas in the those in the global South would be at a disadvantage in a way. Yeah, so those are some of the trends that we observe in our survey this year, and yeah, the survey is coming on in a couple of weeks, and then I would encourage you to follow us on CDRjobs.earth, and when the survey comes out, you can look at sort of the bigger the complete picture.
Thanks, Tank. That was really comprehensive, and I think it sets the stage for everyone else here to continue the conversation. So given what Tank just explained in terms of the context of the global job market, I'd like Ben and Casey to speak for a few minutes about the resources and programs that your organizations provide. How do you help students find that first job in CDR, research job openings, prepare resumes or interviews? How are you helping the students? So Casey, why don't you go first?
Put me in, coach. So once again, College to Climate, we're broadly helping folks that are currently in college find opportunities in the climate space. So Tank is going to be your source of truth for the specific area that we're talking about today. And I was just crawling on your website, Tank, and it's freaking amazing. So honestly, if you don't take away anything from today, I would just look at Tank's CDR Jobs board. I mean, use that as your Bible. What we do for College to Climate, I'll post in the chat. So we've been running curriculum for about now 3 years, goodness. And we truncated that a lot recently into what is our career lab. So that's a 2-hour program that we run for universities. We are just at BU and then Middlebury doing them for some schools in the Northeast. So just as a plug for anybody who's at colleges right now that are interested in receiving that curriculum, we'd love to have a conversation afterwards. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. For the people that just want the abridged version of that, we shake students on the shoulders and tell them a couple things. One, in this world where passion rules over everything, we get really excited at the prospect of people finding what we call portfolio projects to work on when they're in college. So it could be working with an incredible researcher, professor at your college, or just using all of the new latest and greatest AI tools to quickly spin up research projects or newsletters, things that you can build on your own. And what you're doing here is demonstrating your knowledge, passion, and skills for this particular space and doing it in a public format so people can find you. And now all of a sudden your job search looks a lot more like people reaching out to you than vice versa. So that's one thing. We just love the idea of portfolio projects and giving to people in general. The second piece of advice that we really hit people over the head with over this 2-hour period is it is so nerve-wracking as a student and I'm not too far removed from this myself, so I still have the residual anxiety of having done this. But the idea of reaching out to someone I don't know to ask if I can pick their brain for 20 to 30 minutes was a terrifying thing. It kind of still is. But it became a lot less terrifying when we built College to Climate. And all of a sudden, I felt like I had a give to offer other people. Instead of saying, Tank, I'd love to get some moment of your time and please tell me how to get a job. It was Tank, I'd love to get you on this panel, kind of similar to this, to get to talk to all sorts of students. And that's a value add for Tank, who's trying to get his promotions off. So everybody who's listening to us right now has gives and little things to offer people. And I encourage you to ask ChatGPT what those might be. Just word vomit who you are and say, what are things that I can provide Sue or Max? And all of a sudden, it'll make reaching out to people you've never met before a whole lot easier. So build portfolio projects to demonstrate your resume, especially if you're not able to find employment during your college years, and then start using gives as a way to make cold outreach and building your network a lot easier. Those are the two biggest things. Broadly on our website, we have we instead of us being a list, we just like to be a list of lists. So I'm going to send you our student page. Thank you, Matt. And if you just scroll down, we talk a little bit about the different verticals within climate. Obviously, carbon owns its own vertical. And then if you scroll even further, you'll find our list of favorite jobs or job boards. And I need to add Tanks here. While I'm here, like honestly, the best support that I could offer is just like hit me up on LinkedIn with your very specific question, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you.
Very cool. Thank you, Casey. It's very generous of you. Okay, Ben, now how about work on climate?
Yeah, so yeah, a couple of things on that. So one, so mainly I'm part of this kind of expert office hours to work on climate, right? I'm not officially associated with a work on climate, but I have been both used that program to build my own career, and then I'm as part of this kind of service where we do talk to people who want to join, kind of talk to us through this expert office hours program, and we should share that link. But that's literally like, here's a bunch of climate experts, like Casey was just saying, who have volunteered to talk to you. And I really enjoy that for myself. I really enjoy when people sign up. I really enjoy meeting people kind of around the world. I kind of have experience of an event will show up in my calendar and say, who's this? And then, oh, there's a woman in Tanzania who wants to introduce biochar and things like that. It's a great program. And I enjoy meeting people through it. And so one thing in bit of advice in general is that take advantage of that. And as Casey said, like reach out to talk to people. Like one really nice thing about the climate crisis or working in the climate crisis, I mean, there are a lot of bad sides, but there is this really strong feeling that we're all in this together. We need all people, we need young people, we need everybody, working on this problem. And so it is a very collaborative industry. And I do think that, especially no matter what kind of job you're looking for today, being able to talk to people is essential. Like that's the only way you're going to differentiate yourself from the other billions of people on this earth. And so get to know somebody personally, have a conversation with them is even more important than sending out resumes and things like that. Being able to introduce yourself as a human being, as a person. And especially within the climate space, there are lots of people who want you to succeed. We all need you to succeed. We all need you to be involved and successful. So that's kind of the good news. The bad news of working in CDR is that it's actually really hard to get in right now. Like the CDR industry is in kind of a tough spot. My own experience trying to get in, and then also just talking, like I do talk to lots of people who are like, hey, like I want to change my career path, or I'm just getting started. I know this is important. I'm passionate about this. How do I get in? How do I find a spot? And it's hard. I talk to lots of people who are like, I am a great software engineer. I'm a great product developer. I'm a great project manager. I'm passionate about this. Like, why is it so hard to find a position? And it is really hard. The CDR industry, we have this huge gap between what we need to do to save the world, to build out a multi-gigaton scale CDR industry. It's an enormous project. It needs so much of everything that people can bring together. But the gap between that need and the demand, kind of what are people willing to pay for today? And that is kind of scarce, and it's kind of not getting better at the pace that we kind of desperately need it to be so. And so one of the big pieces is on the demand side. Really, as much as, how do we do this? How do we get going? How do we draw investment? It really is like, well, who's willing to pay for carbon credits and at what scale, and who's willing to kind of fund, seed projects and start and just getting things right. So offtake agreements are great, but those are even very hard to come by, and kind of funneling. And so one thing, kind of, if you think of like, hey, where can I pitch in? Where can I help? If you can do something to kind of improve the demand side, that's going to make everything move faster. And then to the extent, if that doesn't get stronger, if that demand isn't growing, it actually makes everything much harder. It's hard to get projects off the ground. It's hard to get investment going. It's hard to get research done. And so really kind of, thinking about where you can pitch in, definitely do that. If you're thinking about kind of roles for yourself, it is like, my background is in science, is in technology, and then, kind of an information worker. And it is important to note that CDR is fundamentally kind of a physics problem. It's how do we move, billions of tons of mass out of the atmosphere and collect just the parts that we care about and then store it someplace durably. And so it's a science problem, but it's also a huge logistical problem. It's a huge operational challenge. It is very much kind of working with forces in the real world. And so, my background is all in technology, and it's not necessarily kind of a technology problem. And many aspects of it are not the way we kind of think about things. And so, both in terms of like, you can both kind of work with people around the world, which is fantastic, but then also a lot of what you're going to be doing, what is needed to be done, is going to be, at a specific place with getting your feet wet or your hands dirty, and really working on things specifically. So in terms of thinking about, how do I get in? What kind of roles? Who would I know? It is going to be, where can I work? Where am I willing to go? And can I introduce themselves and play a role to that? And then another thing I'll note kind of quickly is that we're all pretty new to this. Like this is a huge industry that needs to kind of like jump into existence. And that really, I've been in this, I'm an old graybeard, and I've been in this for 3 years, right? It's like not very long at all. And so we're still figuring it out. We're still kind of making it up, but also there is a great kind of foundation that is being built and that we're continuing to build upon. But it's not, there's enough that is in it that we're just, just getting started really in so many things, and don't really even know where all this is going to go. And so it is a great time to bring your expertise, or to recognize that, you haven't been doing this for a very long time, but kind of neither has anybody else. And so it's not that hard to like plant a flag and contribute and make a name for yourself and find similarly interested people, and certainly encourage you to do so.
Great. And so Casey just put a shout out in our chat, and I don't know that the public can see it, but he just said that the work on climate office hours is amazing, and he recommends it to everyone. So definitely, folks, try to check that out. We've got the links there in the chat. And anything else, Ben, in terms of what people should be reaching out to work on climate for? And are there particular
there's a great
opportunities
set of channels, right? And so one of the
Okay.
the first things that I did, I kind of jumped in and I said, I kind of went to the Learn Ocean channel, and I was totally, thinking about making a career jump at the time, and wasn't really, and say, all right, who wants to talk about this stuff? Like, I believe like this is probably the really promising and underdeveloped way of getting carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere on a large scale. Like, what's the state of play? Who understands it? And then so people kind of talk to me, but then also quickly I was like, this is great. Like, who is anybody organizing anything? And people are like, well, you can. And so like I did, like I became the kind of the founder of the Learn Ocean channel for a couple of years, and like ran a monthly call and met a lot of people through that. But that was really just kind of me appointing myself as the leader, and then becoming the leader, right? And there are lots of opportunities to do things like that, to kind of find a community, to plant a flag, and then also, there are lots of great programs. So there are lots of great channels about how to find a job and how to find a mentor and how to start a company, and as well as the various channels. So that's definitely a great resource,
Good to
and
know.
where a great way to meet other people, talk to other people, and take advantage of those resources.
All right. Thanks, Ben. All right, so let's move on to Max. So Max, I got put on to bringing you into this panel because of your recent Substack that you published as a guest author, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that and where all of that advice came from.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, so I was a guest author on a Substack that Noah McQueen is currently running, and we wrote a blog post about the job search, and the majority of the advice actually came from my own job search. And out of everyone here, you all are on our Substack as well. And I think that one of the things I just want to echo is that all of the advice that I think everyone has given so far is pretty much the advice that we also put within this post. Also, I guess like I would like to say that I'm also like proof of that all these methods work. I was a subscriber to CDR Jobs when it was a newsletter that came to your inbox as opposed to a website. One of the undergrads that worked in my lab is a co-founder of College to Climate and invited me as like the 8th member to join just to like get more people as part of the thing. And then I've also been part of a job search council through Work on Climate. And actually, Work on Climate is where I found a couple of friends to build an online game about carbon dioxide removal in our copious amounts of free time. So, like, the idea that portfolio projects really help, I think, is huge. You can really showcase your skills. It also gives you a break from the job search. As much as everyone's like, oh yeah, we have to be doing the job search, applying to jobs to get the job. I get it, but like no one does that for 8 hours a day. I actually do not. And so having a pet project to kind of work on is super cool and a great way to just kind of like definitely put yourself out there, but be able to refocus on something else. Um, I also think that like one of the other things I really want to echo here is that if hiring ever feels like really not efficient on either side of the coin, it's actually because it's the perfect example of what's called asymmetric information in an economics term, where both parties have different expectations but are unable to provide them at the same time in a way that both understand. So just to let like all the job seekers know, like it's part of the process that it is inefficient. It's not necessarily a you thing. It's just kind of like what the job search is, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I think a lot of what we came up with for this job post or for this blog post was really about like my own experience going through the job search and a lot of the recommendations and skills and things that I found helpful that I think at the very beginning of the job search seemed like really unintuitive at first. And then I was like, actually, these make a lot of sense, looking back on it in hindsight. Um, I think that the reflection prompts is also one of the things that I found the most interesting to contribute to is that really understanding like what it is you're looking for in a job. Because I think for me, initially I was very much wanting to go into CDR, but I actually found that there were quite a few industrial decarbonization jobs that met a lot of the requirements that I was looking for, or that met a lot of those prompts for me. And I think that changed my outlook on what job I was, or it expanded really the view of what jobs I was applying for. Um, so yeah, I think that's kind of the highlights I took away from this post. But also, yeah, similar to Casey, feel free to message me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk about it more detailed if people have questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Max. All right, so we're ready for Q&A with Matt. Matt, do we have enough questions to keep us busy for a few minutes?
We do have a number of questions. We'll see if we can get through them all. And please, if you're in the audience and you have more questions, feel free to post them now and we'll get to as many of them as we possibly can. But definitely put them into the Q&A box. Don't just put them into the chat because we might not see them then and we might not ask it then. So the first question we have is, how can I determine if I should go straight to industry or should I go to grad school first? So I think there's probably a question that maybe Stephen and maybe some debate between the different panelists on.
I'll quickly say something. I would say that this depends a lot on what you want to do and why you want to do that. I would say grad school and things like this, if you are really interested in sort of tech specialization, this might be your way in. The other thing that you can meet, as I mentioned, is a lot of people that have similar interests to you. So if you are really interested in the engineering side of things, really interested in the sort of cutting edge research that might go on in some of these startups for emerging technologies, and you want to be the person that leads that, there might be advantages to this. But at the same time, it's very much a lifestyle choice as well. And realize that, especially, I mean, maybe Max would back me up on this, but especially if you do something like a PhD, this isn't a, hey, I'll just do this and it'll be fine. It's a serious sort of commitment, and it can have a large impact, not just on your career, but on your sort of whole family life and so on beyond. So I would really start to look at the types of jobs that appeal to you, and then look at those steps that you see from where you are today to there. And there are some things that will be somewhat gated by needing to have certain degrees, and others that won't. So I would certainly really think about whether it's for you. It's definitely a journey.
Any other thoughts on whether to go to industry or grad school? Okay. The next
Really,
question,
it's
what if
like
sorry, go ahead. Was it you, Max? Who's talking? Oh, no one's talking? No. Okay. What advice do you have for a PhD student seeking internship opportunities, but none is coming forth? Research focus in geologic carbon storage.
Sorry,
So
Matt, can you?
go
Oh,
for it, Tank.
no, I was gonna ask Matt to repeat the question again. But yeah, Casey, you have.
PhD student seeking internship opportunities, but not finding any. They're looking for something in geologic carbon storage.
I can jump in here. I guess I would have a million follow-up questions of where have you been looking? At what point did it feel like there just weren't options? Or has it been, it feels like a closed universe of roles that you've already looked at and you're starting to see the same things again? So I'm curious on how wide the aperture is. I don't know if that person is able to come off mute or provide more color.
Maybe they could connect with you directly through LinkedIn and follow up
Sure.
on how
Yeah.
I have a quick comment, Matt. So I got my master's in carbon management at Columbia, and the woman who is leading that program now, Shayna Kelly, she actually came out of a fossil fuel energy company where she was doing sort of storage related, maybe she was doing EOR. She certainly didn't advertise that, but it gave her a lot of experience in the geologic aspects of storage that you wouldn't expect necessarily from just a CDR perspective, that you can get good background and skills from a fossil fuel role if you're willing to go that route.
Yeah, actually, I mean, so one for all these things, like how important is it to work in CDR? Like, well, yeah, it's not surprising that you're having trouble finding, CDR specific roles. It's tough, and there aren't that many of them. So, yeah, definitely look to which you're probably already doing, right? Who's out there? What kind of roles are they offering? How can I get in? I think the advice is pretty similar to what we've been doing. Like, find a way, work your connections. Who do you know that, or who don't you know, who knows somebody that'd be willing to talk to you, introduce yourself, say what kind of role you're interested in having, how you're interested in contributing, those kinds of things. But I guess, for all of these things, it is tough. There just aren't that many positions, unfortunately, as much as we desperately need your expertise. It's tough.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna jump in real quick. So I think sometimes so as Ben said, if you're willing to put in the time, and then in terms of internship, you're looking for unpaid internship or paid internship that are not not an industry competitive pay. I think you should reach out to the organizations that you think that you might be interested in working for, getting to know them, and then there is always the opportunity or the possibility of them building a role around you. I think that is also a good way.
I would just to hit that because it might come up later. Like, absolutely. I was just talking last week with a person who built a slideshow presentation of themselves, introducing themselves, reaching out to a bunch of companies, and said, I would be really great for business development, and this is the pay that I'd be comfortable working for. And he ended up working for an incredible breakthrough energy company who absolutely loved him. And this is not the only time that I've seen this happen. So the hidden job market, the idea that there are jobs underneath the existing job boards is a real thing. And people opportunistically create roles all the time.
Okay, next question is I'm not familiar with all the terms and acronyms. What is the best way to get to the speed on them? How familiar should I be with these terms before applying for jobs?
I would say very familiar, or certainly that that there are good air miners. If you're anyone who's working CDR is not familiar with air miners, there's a great program to jump in on. Another thing that I did early, they have this kind of boot up program, which is almost kind of like a little book club where they put together you with a group, and then you kind of consume some content together. It's a great way to get into, yeah, kind of know the lingo, understand the terminology, understand the basics. And, through kind of podcasts and websites and work on climate and air miners, that information is kind of available to you. I don't know if there's a kind of handy CDR glossary. There should be. There's probably a variety of them. Um, but yeah, I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with them, and then also kind of use programs, and kind of having conversations with people will be another way to kind of get into some of these terms. But it definitely, yeah, as you're looking for jobs, definitely helps to kind of know the lingo, know the space, and it's knowable.
Yeah, and just echoing what we just put in the chat is the CDR primer, which it's very readable, it's short, it's got great focused short chapters and sections. You can just go right to the sections that interest you, and it does introduce the vocabulary. It's really meant to help get people up to speed in the space, so I definitely recommend that.
Yeah. CDR Prime is great. The other thing that it does that's probably even more important than explaining the acronyms is it explains those concepts. So yeah, the acronyms wonderful, but just make sure that you understand what's going on in each of those. And yeah, I really can't push a CDR Prime right now.
Okay, we have a number of questions that are sort of around the same thing of like having trouble finding jobs, going up against people who already have industry experience. How do you make yourself stand out? Um, what's your best advice for turning like a like academic resume into something that is more industry focused? What kind of jobs are available to early career students coming out? What kind of openings and newcomers should be looking for? So those are sort of all like of the same ilk of like, I'm getting out of school. What do I do? And how do I make myself stand out? How do I, beat out the competition for these limited spaces?
Yeah.
Can I quickly say something on that one? Because I have an idea, but I think Tank probably helps more. I would just say one thing that I see when people are doing this sort of academic to industry transition is they lose sight of the fact that what appeals in academia doesn't necessarily appeal in terms of how you promote yourself to industry. Industry is very much about sort of what you did and sort of metrics. Like I did this, I delivered this on time. I worked on $3 million worth of projects and we achieved XYZ. When I speak to people in companies, they seem to, resonate a lot more with that concept than, I know how to use an XRD machine, or I learned how to do this specific lab technique, which might be very useful when you're thinking about your project on a micro scale, but there's this sort of macro scale that really helps with that transition. And one of the best things you can do with that is just sort of take your CV, pick whichever sort of AI help system you want, ChatGPT or whatever, and just ask it to review your CV as if it is sort of in that space. And what you'll find as an academic or anyone that's been through an academic sort of set of experiences, you'll just naturally have focused on a different set of things that might not translate perfectly well to what companies are looking for. They know from your job title and things that there's a whole bunch of things you can do, but just tell them about how you delivered more than about what you can just do. But yeah, I'll stop there.
I think to add on to that, one of the things I also found helpful in transferring my academic resume into one that was more industry ready is focusing on the projects and not the publications is a big one. But then also to Stephen's point, put your resume into chat, but also put some of the jobs you're interested into chat and see what it's pulling out as key skills. Because oftentimes job writers or like job role writers don't always know exactly what they're looking for, and they don't always know exactly how to word it either. But being able to get a distilled version of what a job role, like job posting looks like will help you also to formulate your resume to meet more of those like ideas that are being conceptualized.
Okay. Sorry, any more?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if you look at the CDR ecosystem, I mean, when I say CDR jobs, right? What defines a CDR jobs? Now, our definition is that it is a job in a company that does the activities of removing carbon. That's a CDR job. But then there are also, other jobs that are in companies that are not focused on removing carbon, but the job itself is very focused on CDR. So this could be like a marketing agency who's working with a CDR company, for example, and then they need a specialist. So it's very wide, and I would say I think the advice that was given today is applicable to almost all positions. It really depends on what you're looking for. Now, at this time of our industry, yes, the sort of hands-on jobs like engineering operations are are mostly the roles that are hiring right now. So you don't see a lot of marketing roles, you don't see a lot of policy roles, but that's going to change, right, in a few years. So it's also like what Max says, like if you expand a little bit, you could see other things that are parallel to CDR where you can then go and gain experience, and those skills are going to be very transferable in a couple of years when the industry scale up. So yeah, I would also say like look a little wider. Yes, CDR is very attractive. There's a lot of passion in here. But if you could have your regular jobs, and then you could do some volunteer work or or you can contribute a little bit of your time to just stay in the loop of the industry. I think eventually when the industry does expand, then you'll be a good position as well. Yeah, that's the way I see it for some. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. On
great.
that notion of, notion of kind of expanding your focus, right? So both my passion, I think a lot of passions are people are in this industry because we want to be the ones pulling the carbon out of the atmosphere. And that is like the most important thing. It's also really hard to get hired specifically doing that. But there are, like, as Tank mentioned, there are lots of kind of carbon removal adjacent activities that are going around, especially at non-carbon removal companies. For example, like everybody should be evaluating their carbon footprint right now. These are these kind of life cycle analysis, carbon footprint assessment activities that every industry, no matter what should be doing or is probably doing in part. And so having a role within any of those organizations, is definitely kind of carbon removal adjacent and important. It helps you understand kind of carbon accounting and carbon economics. In addition, in theory, and this is not necessarily the case in practice, but the great many institutions have these net zero commitments. As part of those net zero commitments, they should be looking to purchase offsets. But almost nobody really knows how to evaluate offsets, and so they don't really know what's a good project, what's fraudulent, what should we getting behind, and things like that. And I don't know to what extent this is true, but there's potentially the case, desirably the case, that people who are interested in carbon removal and are kind of able to kind of guide them on the purchasing side, maybe another kind of area to look in across a broad swath of industries that are not necessarily focused on CDR, but that would get you experience really evaluating CDR projects and evaluating CDR. That
Yeah.
would be.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone. We're at the top of the hour, so we've got to wrap it up. But this
Sorry to
has
make it to
been
everyone's
really great to
question.
hear from everyone and inspiring to hear about the possibilities and the strategies. Please check us out at openaircollective.com/CRC. There's our contact information there. There's links, we'll be posting updates about the January webinar. It'll be the end of January, hopefully with Octavia Carbon and some other startups. And we'll be posting the recording of this on our website and on YouTube, so look for that. And thanks again, everyone. This was really great. Have a wonderful rest of your day and get some sleep, Tank, since it's 1 a.m. there in Taiwan. All right, thanks, everybody.